We begin with that massive breaking news this morning. Former US President Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts in the hush money trial in New York. It is the first time a former US president has been convicted of a crime and is a stunning legal reckoning for the presumptive Republican presidential nominee who could face jail time.
The jury unanimously found Trump falsified records to cover up a payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the final weeks of the 2016 campaign. Let's go straight to North America. Correspondent Jade Macmillan. She joins us from outside the court in New York City. Jade, what did the jury decide?
Well, these 12 ordinary New Yorkers, Bridget, deliberated for around a day and a half. There was an expectation that they were about to be sent home for the day to come back tomorrow when that news filtered through that a verdict had been reached. Now, Donald Trump has been charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records. The prosecution had alleged that he falsified those records to cover up a payment to the porn star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. That payment was made to buy her silence because she was alleging to have had a sexual encounter with Donald Trump a decade prior, that the then presidential candidate wanted to protect his campaign. The jury had to unanimously decide on each of these charges. That's not to say that they had to find the same or deliver the same verdict on all 34 counts, but in the end, that is what those jurors did, finding Donald Trump guilty on all 34 charges. Now, the judge has set a sentencing date for July. Donald Trump hasn't been kept in custody. He's been allowed to leave the courtroom to come back for sentencing at that later point in time. All of those charges carry a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison. That doesn't necessarily mean that Donald Trump would be sent to jail. The judge would consider a number of factors, including his lack of any prior criminal record, and he could look at options such as probation instead. Nonetheless, an incredibly significant decision here in Manhattan as this trial wrapped up. The former president did speak briefly outside court after the verdict had been delivered. He reiterated the argument that he has made ever since he was indicted, that is, that this case was rigged. He said that the real verdict would be delivered on November 5th. That is the date of the presidential election. Let's hear some of what Donald Trump had to say after this verdict became known.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now.
Former President Donald Trump speaking outside the courthouse a little time ago. We're also going to show live pictures of his motorcade leaving the area there. So he left fairly promptly outside that statement outside court, and that is Mr. Trump's motorcade you can see there on the freeway in New York. Jade, what are you hearing outside? Because we can see a big crowd behind you. We understand there were supporters of Mr. Trump and opponents of Mr. Trump. What are people telling you outside the courthouse in Manhattan?
Yeah, well, the mood here changed the very second that news filtered through that a verdict was about to be delivered. This park is across the road from the courthouse. Ever since this trial began, it has really been home to a number of Donald Trump supporters who come down each day to rally for the former president. As this news came out that we were expecting a verdict, it really filled up again. We had mainly Donald Trump supporters on one side and Donald Trump's critics on another side. It was people on that side of the park, the people who are opposed to Donald Trump, that started yelling and screaming as we started to hear that the verdicts were a guilty one. There is a woman I can see now with a sign saying Don the Felon, and another person told me that she started crying when she heard the news, that they were tears of happiness, that she was so happy that this outcome had been reached. On the other side of the park, as you'd expect, Donald Donald Trump supporters, the people that we have spoken to, are angry. They say that this is a travesty, that the former president should not have been convicted. They have really echoed Donald Trump's argument that this case was baseless, and they insisted that this would not change the outcome of the presidential election. Remember, even though Donald Trump has now become the first president in US history, first former US president to be convicted of a crime, he isn't prevented from running for the White House. He is the presumptive Republican nominee, and in fact that sentencing date that the judge has set down will be just days before the Republican National Convention, where you'd expect that Donald Trump will be officially confirmed as the Republican pick. So nothing to technically prevent him from staying in the race, from becoming president again if he is elected, but a lot of, you would expect, political implications. We don't yet know how this is going to weigh on voters. We're still 5 months out from the election. This might be the only one of Donald Trump's 4 criminal trials that actually concludes before November. He's charged in 3 other cases, but they've all been caught up in legal delays, and so there's a fairly broad expectation that this might be the only one that wraps up before then. Some people down here have told us it won't sway them either way. In such a close race, though, even if it has an impact on a select number of voters in some of these key states, then that could be the deciding factor. We have just heard from the President Joe Biden's campaign. A spokesperson has said that no one is above the law. They've released a statement saying that Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain, but today's verdict does not change that the American people face a simple reality. There's only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, at the ballot box. So that statement coming through from Joe Biden's campaign, really trying to urge voters to consider this outcome favourably for the president, to look at this and take from that Donald Trump shouldn't be put back into the White House.
Jade, thank you. And let's have a look at what New Yorkers have been saying since the verdict was handed down.
I don't know what to say. I did not think that this was actually going to happen, and I can't believe it. It's about time he was held accountable for something. I can't believe it. It's amazing.
This takes you as a surprise?
It's an incredible surprise. I really didn't think he was ever going to get held to account for anything.
Man, I don't think that's really true. I mean, I don't know all the details about his case, but I truly think he didn't do it. My fault, pre-Trump. And I just want to see the truth come out, and I just want to see the true stories involved.